Anybody have any comments? I actually had a comment on the minutes, which was, maybe the minutes are accurate, but the comment was that we didn't actually have a new proposal from the USGS saltwater intrusion yet. Joe is going to comment on that, but I don't think that even to date, an update for their 2018 proposal for.
That's right. We have a proposal, but it's many years outdated.
Right.
We don't have a revised.
So yes, so Jessica, if you just want to correct it. Anybody else have stuff on the minutes?
No. I read it yesterday, nothing, everything looked fine to me.
Okay, all approve, motion to approve. Yes, we're unanimously approving the minutes. Okay, so let's get, we had Greg had mentioned that there was a little bit of a head scratcher with the well level, water levels. Let's go into that briefly.
Yes, we had, and we were just talking that up here as well, that, the strong winds and the extreme low tides have,
Oh, right.
and the frozen ground and the rain that we did get, maybe not flowing through the rock hard soil. Whatever we're seeing in the report, I would feel that we would say we should just see what it looks like next month. To see what happens.
What else are we doing about the rains, about rainfall anyway, other than our rain downs? But yeah, we want to keep our eye on it. And so Ken, you want to just mention about rain?
Just a real quick one on rainfall. Basically, my last measurement was on the 21st, which was no rain since the 21st of February. It was 3.66 inches for this month, and year-to-date is 5.18 inches. And if you take a look at my note that I sent out, we're about on target, in essence, for this time of year.
A little, not particularly heavy,
Yeah.
Despite all that snow and all that. It
actually
really didn't amount to.
It didn't amount to much at all, no. From
As
that
much as,
standpoint,
which kind of might explain a little bit of it not trickling into the February
Yeah.
Yes.
18th.
Just to show, just make sure everybody's on the same line. I did put in both the national drought monitor.
We've seen it, yeah.
Okay, I put them both in here. If you look through that, we could leave both of these in the future. We talk about, the future plans on modifying report. So they're in there. We did have what was a dramatic drop of, in terms of the percentile for February's values, where January, it was about 50% to the median, and it's like 27%. It's at 27% to the median in up to this point in February. So we are still seeing a drawdown. The drawdown is certainly there. And if you go to the last page of the report, which is the raw values, right? We're not trying to adjust this for the season. This is just the raw numbers, and we've got a very steep decline. It's very concerning.
Yeah, so we're not seeing a lot of recharge. We may, if we don't see a lot more recharge, have again a year where we're thinking about drought.
That is correct. And so I think the summary conclusion is that, okay, we need to see what happens. Right now, we're not happy about the way the aquifer is being recharged, but now maybe if we get a little bit of warmer weather and the ground defrosts, we may see actually the rain that happened a while ago may now finally be working its way through the aquifer.
One of my points had to do with the article in the newspaper, as you know, and I walk the beaches a lot, and the beach in front of us here in Silver Beach is incredibly low tides. I mean, we're talking, I can jump across one of my neighbor's dock areas that he had dug out for a boat area that he has in the back of his house. And it's a trickle, basically. And my point was, I'm wondering, it'd be wonderful if we had real-time data now with our wells, particularly at Silver Beach.
Okay,
We
well,
could see
I want to pull
the
in,
effect of the tide, low tides.
as opposed to just the reading happened to be at a low tide and therefore.
Regular tidal.
So, yeah, real-time monitoring, which is, we're having a little bit of discussion online. Not I don't think everybody was included, but I want to get Doug before.
Just had a question, Greg. The data point you're referring to, how does that compare to the other 5 years that you're showing? Well, how far below on a percentage basis is it compared to those prior periods?
If to go back.
I don't have the benefit of this report.
Well, the
You didn't
Goat Hill is,
put it up.
Goat Hill is is better than all of the others, right, at this point. Condon is about, is fine as well, I'd say.
But you're asking about year over year, right?
Yeah, I'm saying year over year, how does, you say that it looks,
That is year over year. When he says it's 27.
This is 6 years,
yes,
all right? And so the one that's really is problematic is Manhasset, which at this point is as low as it's been at any point in the last 6 years.
and where is that well?
That's on it's where the potato farm is.
Like Mildred Heard, around there?
Cobbetts.
Cobbetts?
And Manhasset.
Right.
That one was easier. The second street was easier.
It's interesting because that's a part of the island that has a fairly high elevation.
Yes,
Yes,
and Beanfields.
Yes, sir.
That area.
yeah, well, it's, that,
All right, so what's weird is that regionally, we seem to be in the, according to your maps, we seem to be in the green, but locally, we're not really seeing it in our wells on Shelter Island. And so not anything to light hair on fire and not anything, but that's to be aware of how we go into the spring, right?
Yeah, particularly since this is allegedly a recharge period.
This is allegedly a recharge period. I always worry that things have become more erratic and we recharge it, we get heavy rains at odd times. So, but that, again, it's, more data is weighted has to come in over time, but we want to look at, are we getting more flooding and droughting at the same simultaneously? And what you might want to do about that, which might actually bring up an item later on the agenda, what you might want to do about having both more and less. Other items about just, what the rains have done, where we're at in terms of aquifer recharge. We're good with that? We can go right on to, so number 4 on our agenda is this, we've been talking for a long time now, for many months, about Suffolk County Health Department water quality testing in the nearshore area. I keep saying I would like to see retests of people who've had in the action zone on nitrogen in the center, but we focused, because we needed to focus, on the nearshore area. The concept has been, and we thought we were about to move right forward on this, to encourage a higher rate of Suffolk County Health Department tests and encourage people to share their information about their Suffolk County Health Department tests. We did that because we found that that was the most cost-effective way that we knew of to not only get saltwater intrusion information, chloride information, but also at the point where it's relevant, which is at the resident's home. But also the full panoply of water quality issues, 200 and some odd compounds for $100 per resident's home. We were told that the board doesn't really support that. And so we now bear in mind that's support reimbursing residents for the Suffolk County Health Department tests, which they can order for themselves once a year. And our strongest recommendation has been that they do so. And most residents can probably afford $100. So there's no reason that we can't go forward with some sort of a program for encouraging more testing. But I picked up the phone to Gordon last week. He was at the New York State Association of Towns, which is a great thing for our board members to be at. But he took the time out, talked about it, we had a good conversation about it. And I not sure I understood fully his reasoning, but as I understood it, Gordon felt that, and I agree with some of this, that we're not doing enough for the residents. So therefore, why fund testing now, which is that part of it I don't quite get, because I think that residents can do stuff for themselves and knowing is important. So I'm just wondering, Gordon, if you wanted to comment on why, what the logic is behind not supporting funding testing.
I don't call the shots in terms of whether it's funded or not. It's the board that.
As a whole, I understood that, but I know we have some
realized
support.
there was a vote, okay, there was some indication that there was no support behind it. I don't know, I don't remember it really coming to the board that you wanted this program to be.
But we've been for months asking for approval.
Maybe I wasn't there, I wasn't listening, or something to that.
Okay.
My position, I think testing is really important, okay? And what I said to Peter is that I think that it's basically, I think there are three components, okay? Just getting the testing, okay, like we did in the center, the difference in the center, okay, is we didn't know who the people were.
We didn't have the specific addresses.
And we had a few of the wells there, I think there were 8 of them.
8 of them were non-potable and 50% of them were in what we call the danger zone.
Because we didn't know who they were. And I'm only assuming that no one came forward to the WAC to say anything about it. Am I correct in that assumption?
Well, I've provided, I came forward, I was one of those pests. I want help.
In any event, my feeling is that it's one thing to do a test, okay? But when you get the results, and let's assume you had 6 other people come forward and they said, listen, we do have a problem, we have saltwater intrusion. I asked the committee, what are you gonna do about it? Okay, and so you have the information. We obviously know just by the outside, the Nearshore Peninsula, where there's going to be some water, there's gonna be some saltwater extrusion. So when we have the information, shouldn't we have something in place that we're going to help them with, or at least advise them of their options or what are their options to help them with this issue? Okay, and then the third part is, okay, how's the funding gonna happen? If in fact the town does take the position that we really are helping them, is there funding that would be required from the town?
Not for the testing, for the helping afterwards.
Yes. So I
Because
think-
we did have budget set aside for the
I think
testing.
it's only logical that someone's gonna come back and say, Peter, or the committee, I have this problem, so thank you very much, but what are you gonna do?
Okay.
And what do you say to somebody like that? I mean, you have to realize that there's going to
I
be.
agree, it
a
isn't-
repercussion of something when you do the testing, and I think it's important, and I said to you, I think that if you take it to the next step level, is, okay, let's take the worst case scenario. We do have 6 people come forward.
Or more,
Okay, so what are we gonna propose? Okay, I mean, now you got the answers, but what are you gonna propose?
So, Gordon, are you saying that the solution is something that the Water Advisory Committee should be thinking about and proposing and exploring?
Well, I'm not saying the water advisory.
No, I'm just saying, well, who else is going to, who's going to do that?
Well, I don't know, but what I'm saying is now you're getting the data, you know there's gonna be a feedback. So then how do you address that issue?
Look, we've had residents come and stand at that lectern and publicly state that their water is not even potable.
Okay,
We got
A couple in your community.
we got comments from the board basically saying, well, you should, I think it was, you should get your water tested or something from this committee that weren't, there was no solution offered whatsoever. But that was in December of 2023, Gordon. And so we've had a lot of palaver in the meantime about just kicking the can down the road.
I don't think this is about kicking the can down the road. I think that there should be some kind of whoever puts it together, when you do the testing, you're gonna get results. And you're prepared for those results, you're prepared for that public coming forward with saying, hey, I got this problem.
But prepared or not prepared, I feel like I don't want to be, I want to know. I mean,
We know, Andrew, you worked on various alternatives of how to address some of the issues. If we're talking about saltwater intrusion, there are various methods to deal with that, okay? So I think that it's great to have the testing. I'm not against testing. I'm just saying to you, I think you really as a board.
okay, well, we want to go forward. I think that we're still committed to going forward with so one of the things that triggered this for me was that when Suffolk County Health Department came to us and described the work they do, they said there were only between 300 and 400 tests, $100 tests. They're worth $1,000 if you do it privately. So it's very cost effective. Only about 300 or 400 in the last 10 years were requested of them, which strikes me, we know, but a lot of people who come here and buy a house don't know that nobody is looking at their, other than in the Heights and in West Neck, nobody is testing their water for them, making sure that it's safe. So our strongest recommendation has been get tested. And what we're finding is I know that Howard Johansson is like half of those tests. So no, people are just not looking. And we need them to start looking. And so we thought we could encourage them by going, by saying the town will reimburse you and just all we ask is that you share your data, non-anonymously in this particular case, because there's been concerns about that.
I don't think that we need to have a solution in place before we discover that there's a problem. And the whole thinking about the testing was to really create a baseline of environmental information and data in order to help us dimension as to whether or not there was an issue. So I think that, and particularly when you look at the cost of $100 or $125 per residence.
It's actually 100 still.
Okay, so if you took all of the Menantic Peninsula and all of Silver Beach, which are peninsular communities that are very vulnerable to saltwater intrusion, we're talking about $40,000. So to me, the reticence of the town board to not even contemplate spending $40,000 out of what's the gross amount of the budget? Round numbers to the nearest million.
Yeah.
All right, so $40,000 out of $8 million, do the math, it's infinitesimally small. So to me, it's just mind-boggling that this wouldn't be something that every single board member would jump on enthusiastically and say, yeah, we need to help.
And
This is an easy way to do it.
we don't have to test every single home, but we had in fact earmarked a year and a half ago $20,000 for saltwater intrusion in the nearshore area in the WAC budget. It's unspent. I guess it'll go back into general coffers. But if the town does not want to fund this process, and again, I think it's symbolic because the homeowners can afford $100. It's symbolic. It's an encouragement to, that we're all in this together, the community is in with you. Anyway,
Well, the other thing,
let's let Andrew step in because he hasn't spoken yet. But
To me, it's illogical to send this committee on an exercise of designing solutions before we know the nature and extent of the problem. Because the efforts by the committee to design those solutions will provoke lots of reaction,
as we've seen.
and there'll be lots of brouhaha, and we frankly won't get anywhere. And so to go through all that without having data about the nature and the extent of the problem strikes me as illogical. And I've been on the pointy end of that exercise this summer, where what I did was lay out two hypotheticals and do a comparative cost analysis
Of solutions.
of solutions without tight data about the nature of the problem. And, it was ugly. So that's not something I really want to engage in. I think we need to know the nature and extent of the problem. And the solution set will narrow as a result, and we'll have a smaller number of alternatives to consider in the context of a specific problem. So that's my view.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Ina had a question or a comment.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name's Ina Scott.
Yeah, but maybe stand, let's do it right. Just if you wouldn't mind, come up and
You
say,
need to come to the lectern.
I hate to put you on the spot, but we,
My name's Ina Spathis, and I live in Silver Beach. And I've met a few of you gentlemen occasionally, so nice to meet everybody. I kind of understand where Gordon's coming from the aspect of we're not new here. We bought our house 4 years ago, but concerned about drinking water. I think what he's really saying is if you get all these results, you don't want people to go into a panic. And I think you gentlemen know quite a bit from all the research you're doing, and there are options that you're aware of. Like right now, I'm just trying to understand what all those options are. So I think Gordon, maybe what you're saying is you just don't want to put it out there and have everybody go into a panic if the results are not as good for everybody. So I understand
appreciate it.
that maybe just having, and you would have time, but I don't know how it works if you go and you get the board to approve it. But I agree, there's no benefit in me providing you with my data. I could just keep my data. So if you want people to share the data, then I do think it would be worthwhile. I think you can have a plan and just have some presentation where these are the options that you would have. You can, if it's high nitrates, you'd have to put in a reverse osmosis. I know I've talked to Ken quite a bit and he has a lot of experience. So I think that's really where Gordon maybe is coming from.
I'm not against it. I'm sorry.
I think Gordon is in favor of testing. I don't mean to mischaracterize.
I think, for example, like funding, I think that, where does WQIP fit into this in terms of funding? I mean, did WQIP, correct me, did they pay for the testing initially
Which testing?
in the center? No.
In the center, I believe for WQ.
Yeah, I'll take that, if I may. We, on the WQI, were attempting to develop that information so that it would be I'll put quotes around an advertisement to, you need to do something.
But in a septic system.
All right, and that was the thinking behind the WQI paying for that. It didn't work out perfectly because we did move away from knowing, there was a big concern people wouldn't join because they didn't want to have their name on a public record that says they have a nitrate problem, whatever it may be. So it didn't work out particularly well. We do have some numbers, but because of the technique we used, it's a little hard to.
And testing again, just.
At that time, it was the WQI, but we subsequently asked for clarification as to whether the WQI could pay for testing only. And the answer was no. And since we already had put in our budget for testing at the WAC, apart from WQI money, allocated from general funds from the town, we were going to offer the rebate program
Your budget money.
out of our budget, previously budgeted money.
And now, in terms of the alternative, I guess my concern, okay, is that when we start, I pick the words real careful because semantics mean something and words mean something.
Words mean
I'm
something.
not looking to create, I would not be looking to create something. It's good for people to know it, and if you really look at the basics of it, the individual is drinking bad water, okay? He should want to know. I don't think the $100 is the breaking point.
I agree, it's symbolic.
More concerned about is that once we do these things, I think we really should have whoever does it, whether it's, the town does have a town engineer. We do have access to other people. I think we need to be able to at least address it with whether it's under the sink or if we want to go down the road of even public water. I think those things have to be on the table.
Well, but Gordon, understand these have been on the table.
Well-
Andrew is talking about having analyzed down to the costs and specific suppliers for the alternative solutions. Ina's asking, but, you know, we have gone down this road.
Even with I mean, I think the 800-pound gorilla in the room is, and I guess I'll start it off, okay, because no one has never really asked it as clear as I'm gonna ask it, okay? And it's gonna be as follows, okay? Does the municipality have the obligation to make sure our residents' well water is clean and drinkable?
But let me just clarify the question, legally or morally?
Well, they're both in the same category, okay? Morally, you can talk about it, and you can talk about it legally. okay?
I can't answer morally because ethics is complicated, but legally the answer is no. The town does not have this obligation.
Currently up for debate.
Okay.
So,
Anita,
correct,
because,
no, however,
hands up.
the state of New York adopted a green amendment to the Constitution, which says that residents have a right to clean water, clean air, clean soil, all these things. So until that works its way through the legal system, we don't know if we're legally obligated to make sure that residents are provided with clean potable water.
We don't even know, because I've never really gotten an opinion on this, okay, of whether we do, and you've heard,
I think it has to be tested in the courts.
no, even with the testing, do we take on some obligation? But let's go further. Let's go further. Let's go to the further extent, okay, that, there's been this debate about other methods of doing it versus public water, okay?
Yeah,
I think
private filtration or
the thing is,
public
I think
water.
the public has to know really what their financial obligations will be.
But we've done this work.
No.
We've posted it.
You just finish, okay? Let me finish, okay? And then if you present it this way, and whether it's a public water thing that we think that the things are very similar, I think you should bring it to the public and go on a referendum and then end the whole case.
Okay. So let's let, Anita had her hand up and then Pam. Anita, are you still with us? Is your hand still up? There we go.
I am with you. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm
We
having
can
some
hear you.
internet trouble.
You're good. You
Um,
sound good.
Okay. Okay, thanks. So I just want to remind the committee and anyone listening that what we asked for initially, almost 2 years ago, was that the town partner with the Menantic Peninsula community and Silver Beach to help us determine whether or not there was a widespread saltwater intrusion problem. I keep hearing that I'm not opposed to testing, but the best way to determine whether there is a widespread problem is through the testing of individual wells. I'm assuming we can all agree on that. Whether or not the town pays for it, the effort to form a partnership around this issue was to get some publicity for it. I would not know there's a water intrusion issue if people aren't speaking about it. We have tried to speak about it at our annual meeting for several years in a row. I asked the town to help us publicize this question and to publicize solutions if people find they do have saltwater intrusion. Really asking for the town to fund testing was a way to say We're partnering with you. We think this is an important issue. I agree, most people can pay for a test themselves. So my request now is for the town to help us, or for the town, regardless of funding, to help us conduct tests on a larger sample of homes. I don't understand how you can say we should do more, so the solution is to do nothing. That doesn't seem to answer the question. At least let's see if there is a problem. Thanks.
Thank you, Anita. So, okay, so I don't want to, this is item 4. We have a lot to get through. Pam and Sean, I'm going to hold you off for a moment. I'll try to bring you in as well. But I just want to know, from the committee's point of view, funded or unfunded? Do we want to go forward with helping increase the number of tests in the nearshore area by organizing Suffolk County Health Department testing on a larger scale?
Can I ask a question that precedes that one, I guess?
Okay.
What number of wells do we have? Do we have private people, citizens have had their wells tested? Do we have any idea from the Silver Beach?
No idea.
Well, in the last 10 years, between 300 and 400. I don't know.
That's the island.
The whole island.
That's the whole island.
Whole island, correct.
So.
And offer the same things.
And,
Tests incorporate, a variety of.
but all of them would have chloride.
Not necessarily.
No?
No, not necessarily.
We have some polling data, but it's 10 years old.
Okay.
Now, maybe things don't change geologically over 10 years, probably not.
Well, 10 years is important. That's kind of why I'm unfortunately needing to move us on relatively quickly. So
You asked a question.
I asked a question. Are we moving forward, funded or unfunded, with helping the two nearshore communities in question organize more efficient, more wide-scale Suffolk County Health Department testing program?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
I'm not ready for a yes, because I'd like to see what is actually being planned when we consider what didn't work in the center testing.
Well, let me be precise about it. Organizing Suffolk County Health Department to come in to do a bulk 20, 30 homes, whatever many homes can be organized in each of those communities in a condensed period of time.
And the data comes to us.
We certainly can ask for that, and we could insist on that if we fund it. If we're not funding it, it's up to them.
Okay.
Right.
If we're not funding it, then they could just go and do that.
could just do
They
it
could do their test right now.
But again, they're asking for our help to, talk to Jason Himes, say, create 2 weeks in which, we're going to be now doing 30, 40 homes in this area. 2 weeks when we're going to do 30, 40 homes in that area.
Yeah, if we pay, it should be our data.
I think we had previously agreed that if we pay, we're good with asking people to submit their test with its full, the address, name, everything.
Okay. Well, then, for whoever is, whether it's funded or not, if it's funded and we are getting specific data, then I'd say, fine. I'd vote yes then for what your question was.
Okay,
If
Meg.
that's what you meant.
I thought we discussed doing this as like a rebate program.
Right.
Because trying to coordinate that many cats and herd them and then
Right.
direct them
That was
was
the idea.
very much problematic. So in this case, we would advertise to an area, say, hey, we're gonna launch this rebate program. If you contact the county and get your water tested, bring those test results to us and we will reimburse you the cost of
Right.
that testing. That was the kind of program we were gonna set up, not like a hand-holding,
But that is the funded program that requires that the board, 3 members of the board agree.
To clarify, because it was sounding to me like we were gonna do all the heavy lifting by getting the people.
No, we're asking the communities to organize themselves. We happen to have
Yes.
community leaders from both of those communities.
This is a funded program or an unfunded program?
So either way, I would like to know, do we want to go ahead and try and or help organize a large number of tests to be done in a condensed period of time in Sulphur Beach and in Monadnock?
And this is the WAC helping those respective communities.
Coordinating with Suffolk County Health Department and with the communities, just coordinating.
I don't understand
We're
how
aligned.
this would work, quite honestly. Unless we fund it, I mean, there's no incentive for these people to do it. I mean, we can talk about funding or just talking about having people test their water, which we've been doing in Silver Beach forever.
Yep,
Right?
yep.
I mean, how much
So
more?
you feel that it's important to hold our ground and say this should be funded?
If you want to insist upon having the data,
Mm-hmm.
Then you got to pay for it.
then you got to pay for the data. Or give them the option of
Okay, so again,
We've already heard, excuse me for speaking over you.
No, no.
We've already heard from a resident who said, maybe I'll share my data, maybe I won't.
right.
Well, so do you have a way of keeping the information confidential? I guess the question. Like, how are you going to use the information and who's gonna see it?
So I believe that if we have information, there are laws that say that if somebody FOIAs us, we can't hold it in private. We can't protect it. On the other hand, I have to say that if you're talking about homeowner values, you can't keep this information private either. People are going to know the test. Anybody who's doing due diligence on purchasing a home will know. So, yeah,
You're
Karen.
going to find other things than just saltwater issues.
That's
by the
true.
way. This is a complex issue. This is not the straightforward binary kind of a thing that you're dealing with. And there are degrees of contamination, call it what you'd like. And each solution is unique regarding how you go after it. This is why we say, go to a testing outfit or water like Mermaid and have it done, because
Have the work
it is
done.
really beyond our scope to come up with these solutions, because it has to do with usage, number of gallons per.
It's very specific to the home.
media, it is incredibly specific to each of the homes.
Okay, so again, to keep us on a track then, it sounds to me that we don't have consensus about an unfunded program at this time. We do have consensus about a funded program. We're using the budget money that's already been allocated, offering a $100 rebate in exchange for precise data from the homeowner.
Per Megan,
The way Megan described it.
the way
yes.
she described it
Right.
as such, basically.
Right, so I would just like to know, is the committee in consensus about that? Is everyone in agreement that that kind of a program is something that we would like the board to offer? We would like to ask the board to allow us to continue onward and offer? Yes.
Yes, and I would also recommend
Yes.
that we do not get hung up in the details of the management of this, because we will spend months doing that. And so what we're asked is a policy question. And on the policy question, my answer is yes.
Yes, we should be
Yes, we should.
funding
We should be funding
reimbursements
it
for testing.
because we're going to learn, we're going to get more data. The people in the community are going to get more data. If they're paying for it themselves, they're still going to be more informed than if they don't do a test. So I'm in favor of it.
Okay, Greg, you seem to be saying if we're getting the data, you also are in favor? I just want to confirm, we're still in consensus.
See, we don't have a lot of information now, in truth. You know, I mean.
Zero information.
Pitifully small.
Yes,
Yeah.
so,
So you-
again, it's, yes, it's fine.
You've got it at, you're at, yeah, and Joe, are you at yes with doing a program that involves reimbursement, advising that the town board approve us for going ahead with our reimbursed program?
Yes, but I want to be clear that the funding should not take from our potential saltwater intrusion study with USGS, because we have not seen that proposal yet.
Okay,
And that I think has the potential to provide us a lot of this bigger picture data. So my recommendation is contingent on the sourcing of the funds. I want to preserve the opportunity to pursue this proposal
We
with.
have a couple of USGS
Yes.
studies that we're looking at.
That said, in terms of funding the individual tests, that money could be sought from another source like the WQI fund has done for the center test. So they don't have to be mutually exclusive, but I don't want to move forward with the individual tests now if it means we cannot consider the formal USGS study for saltwater intrusion, because that is a critical
And that is
project.
just saltwater. I mean, that's much simpler, the way they're doing it on saltwater.
Right, so it's elsewhere on.
It is binary almost.
It is. So I'll just quickly merge the agenda.
Number 8 and number 4, let's quickly merge them.
So that's,
Saltwater intrusion
so
study.
that proposal included the installation of deep bored wells, which would traverse all layers of the aquifers known now. So we would go beyond the upper glacial, our freshwater lens, into the saltwater layers, known saltwater saline aquifers, and it would measure dynamically changes at these locations, showing the relationship between salt and fresh water over time. These wells last for decades. There have been many in service throughout Long Island since, the 70s and
I think
80s.
the last time this was done was in 1977, when the very first test, I think it was Soren, basically, was the one that drilled these holes across the island, in essence, and basically took them all the way down to 90, 100 feet beyond basically the interface level, past all the clay layers into the next aquifer. I mean, they
Right.
foot by foot kind of analysis.
Okay, but let's not go over the history now.
I know, it's-
So
it's
so
important.
the important takeaways are that is a study that will allow us for the long term to project major changes in freshwater, saltwater interface. It does not tell us on a granular level who is dealing with potability issues.
Right, it is a different insight, but it's
different
also
approach.
important, but Fred Stum has not yet gotten back to you with a budget for that?
No, but they have indicated they will. And so that is the grounding of my position here, is that I want to make sure, if that is an opportunity, that we can allocate funding for that. I don't know that it's one or the other. I just want to be clear that I'm not voting to support one in lieu of the other, because that I believe would be
You think both are important to do?
absolutely, both are important to do.
But the second one, the saltwater intrusion one, might be funding in our next budget cycle.
With the USGS.
Yes.
Well,
Rather, we've budgeted it for this cycle, $20,000.
and that money has been carried over.
And that money's been carried over, well, yes, we budgeted a year and a half ago.
Right.
So for next 2025, but, for a future budget, I mean, I think it'll take them time before they're ready to drill the well and
It's a much more expensive.
It is, but that money is available, that $20,000. That's the same money that we were talking about for the testing
That's what
program.
it was designated for originally.
are we prioritizing one above the other?
Well, that's what I want to be clear about, because I don't want to rule out the USGS study. I think this committee would be seeking funding for both, because they're both important projects that both serve our community.
Okay, I'm going to fold in number 9 now. I am very aware of everybody online who is eager to speak, but given time constraints, I'm going to hold off. Number 9 is, I've been contacted again by Pam Riley at the US. I contacted Irene Fisher at the USGS. Remember, we had a study of water quality across Shelter Island, a baseline study. It was the original study that established that the USGS test well in the center, right here in the center, was above 10 milligrams of nitrogen. It's really the trigger. The school project was largely because people became aware of that nitrogen levels had reached non-potable in the USGS test wells in 2016. And also, half of those wells also showed danger zone, 5 to 10 milligrams of nitrogen associated with health effects. We always had planned that this 2016 to 2018 tests these 2016 to 2018 tests would be repeated every 10 years so that we had a picture of the long-term trajectory. They are, Irene's moved on to a new position. Pam Riley is running the USGS water department here out in Quorum. You've all, on the public discussion documents, we won't review it right now, but on the public discussion documents, she has told us what she would need from us in order for them to give us a full proposal. The most important point to pay attention to in that letter, and you can see it online, and I'll also make sure her letter is distributed to all of you, is that each additional thing that we add has a cost. And back then in 2016 to 2018, we were not as aware of either PFAS or 1,4-dioxane in our water supply. So there are a couple of things we might want to add beyond what we did 10 years ago, knowing that we would repeat those same things every 10 years going into the future. Okay, so we're going to wind up with 3 different programs that we're asking the town board to approve expenditures on. Again, I don't think the expenditures, they're not, buying a property that the CPF buys with 2% transfer tax monies. It's not in the millions of dollars. We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars in each particular case, I believe. Nevertheless, it's not no money, and you do one test, you do another test, you do another test. It's going to add up. So again, I think that we're going to have to come back to this. I think that we have consensus that we would like the town board to formally consider allowing us to go forward with the $20,000 Suffolk County Health Department reimbursement program, because we believe that we'll get data from individual homes. We will get more of a groundswell of interest. We will signal to the communities that we are with them morally at minimum, and perhaps legally. Yeah. So I think we already had consensus on that. We would like the board to approve our going forward. We want them to be aware that we want to do work with the United States Geological Survey. They're probably not going to have as much federal funding as they used to have, which means that this is going to be on the town to be willing to fund knowing water quality and saltwater intrusion issues, knowing the data regardless of where the chips fall. Okay. All right,
Just to close that then, so what you want us to do for the next meeting is to take a look at the Pam Riley letter?
think about what you want in
See
the
what's in
next
it, yes?
baseline. And she's
As
asking.
far as this is going,
Yes,
you know.
she's asking us to request of them, we want to do the same baseline study again, plus we want to add this and this and this. How much is it going to cost?
So we should be prepared to talk about that at the next meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
So are we passing a motion now? I agree with what you just said.
Right,
But
so
I'm
we had-
looking for some crispness from a governance standpoint.
From a governance standpoint, I asked for consensus.
You have it.
We have consensus, based on our
Consensus
consensus.
into a motion?
Would you have a?
I can't do it as well as you can.
Okay, the motion is to ask the town board to formally decide, are we okay to pursue a reimbursement program up to $20,000?
No, so hold it. We are recommending
We are recommending
that the town
approve a reimbursement program up to $20,000 for Suffolk County Health Department testing in the nearshore area, requiring the homeowner to send in their data.
That's good. Okay, so there's a motion. Is there a
This is
second?
item number 4, because you got 3 items.
I'm back to item
I'm getting a little baffled.
Joe kind of threw us a little bit of a curve because he said he supports it, except he doesn't want to have that supersede the possibility.
Okay, but this isn't a budget discussion. Okay, so you made the motion?
You seconded it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed?
But,
I'm a little lost there.
yeah, I'm
Sorry.
I need to clarify this also.
Again, we recommend that the town approve expenditure for reimbursement up to $20,000 for Suffolk County Health Department tests.
The context that I think is important is that the $20,000 in the WAC budget was allocated to saltwater intrusion testing. We have those monies on hand, but there is no additional funding for a second or third study.
Or anything else.
Or anything else, right? So the direction, just for some context on how we got here, we shifted away from USGS on that 2018 proposal for these deep water wells because we thought that was not available to us with USGS. And that's how, in combination with the center testing effort, we've then pivoted to offer a water quality testing option to adjacent communities that were not included in our center test. And this was an opportunity to merge both of those needs, the saltwater intrusion study, also water quality for individuals that were not included in the center. And the Suffolk County Health Department agreed to partner with us on this and offer those discounted water tests. We now know that the USGS test may be a possibility again, which is the original intent of the $20,000. So I don't want to conflate the two as being the same study, because they're not. One is a Suffolk County sponsored potability test panel that's offered to individuals, which will tell them granularly at their property what kind of water quality challenges, if any, they have. It's a great resource to the town to know. It's a great resource for the individual to know. It's highly granular. There's a number of variables. As Ken pointed out, it tests for hundreds of components beyond chlorides, but it's included in the same price. So it makes a lot of sense to get that data.
Cost effective and could serve as a saltwater intrusion study as well as more.
Absolutely. It just includes a lot of other variables, but it serves a great benefit in that the community and the individual know what their water quality is, and perhaps it encourages them to re-enroll in the program in subsequent years.
Okay, so we need to amend the motion.
Yes, we just need to slightly amend the motion, I
Let's
think.
just finish. Let's just
Go ahead, finish.
Now, the USGS study is much more aligned with the long-term objectives of this committee and the town. This is totally legitimate scientific data from a federal agency. It's data that we will continue to receive for decades, and it's important in studying long-term trends of the saltwater interface in our periphery neighborhoods. And that is the type of policy, that is the type of study that towns can build policy off of in the long run. That is data that will tell you how your neighborhoods are changing with sea level rise, with climate change, with development. It's very important, legitimate data that you build policy off of. And so we should focus. That is precisely the type of investment that the town should be making. That's not to say that the individual tests are not, but these are two different tracks, both with very specific values. And the $20,000 that we had in the committee budget was allocated for one of these. So if we want to do two, we have.
And it was reallocated for the other, but I think what you are saying is, without spending the money that was allocated for the saltwater intrusion study originally for the USGS well testing, we would like to propose that the town approve a reimbursement program separately up to $20,000.
That's correct.
So bottom line, you only have $20,000.
Right.
Now,
You would be asking for a
We have
new
two options.
20,000.
right, we have the saltwater intrusion study done by USGS, or we have testing private wells. We need to figure out how much the USGS study will cost.
Correct.
And figure out how much of your $20,000 that will eat, because I think that that is probably a very good place for us to start. It's official, it's tested, it's tried and true. And then remaining monies can be used for individual wells, and we can allocate a new budget for that for the next year. But for this year, we've got 20 grand. And if the USGS won't be ready until next year, we can budget for that accordingly and maybe use this year's budget for individual wells, but we need to see the whole picture before I think we can make a solid decision one way or the other.
As Joe says, that's actually. Joe's whole point.
Does that put us back to, we're deferred for one more month?
Yes.
No, the motion could still go before the board. I just wanted to clarify the accounting issues. We have $20,000 if you spend it on private well testing. If the board approves that, you have to seek another funding request for the USGS proposal, if we want.
Or this would be another funding request?
So my position before was just to make this committee aware that we can move forward with one, but just some thought is required if that's how we want to spend the money.
So why don't we amend the motion and say, provided that
Provided that.
the recommended testing
Mhm.
does not reduce the previously authorized USGS test.
Right, but Meg is
Testing program.
we just don't have, there's not a
Okay,
budget.
but we can still pass that motion. Okay, we can say, we want to do the testing in the nearshore areas on a rebate basis, provided that the funding for that program does not reduce the funding available for the USGS program. Period.
That's the amendment.
I would think that the town board would appreciate it if we had some knowledge about those two topics.
We don't know.
Instead
No,
of
we-
saying, here's one topic, and we'll come back to you with another topic to talk about Fred Stumm's program.
Right.
You know,
But we have an opportunity to declare and to make a recommendation. And the recommendation is, do the individual testing as long as it doesn't sacrifice
Yes.
the USGS program.
Yes, let the town board decide now.
Let the town board decide.
And it could be in a future budgeting
If that
cycle.
means that the town board says, well, no, we're not going to give you the extra money,
Right. So again, we are again saying we are asking the board to approve a rebate program.
Yes.
You don't have to repeat that.
All right, so we have it. Are we all in favor of that?
Yeah, we
Do we know what that
we
is?
voted.
I hope
We did
so.
vote for it. I think we do know what it is. Jessica, do you feel like you know what that is? Okay, great.
Amendment now.
All right, I'm going to close all three topics because, we are going to come back to
Item
them.
10?
Item 8, 9, and 4 are being closed. I'm also going to
Can we go to item 10?
defer, yeah, I think you're right to ask
These
that
guys have spent
question.
an hour.
So I'm just going to say real quickly, I'm going to defer the discussion of our recommendations for water supply or private filtration. I myself have reached out to Hydrotech that had provided some information to Andrew for his study to specifically walk through and possibly implement private filtration for my own home, because I do have 1,4-dioxane and PFAS that concern me, as well as high nitrogen. And I'm going to do this as a public process. He was going to come this last Thursday. He has needed to do some physical therapy. He will come next Thursday, so that will be on our agenda for the next meeting. I'm also going to table aquifer-friendly, unfriendly consumer products for now, because we do have, as Greg, I think, is pointing out, guests who want to do a presentation. Sean, I am also going to table, for the moment, we did have a meeting of the irrigation subcommittee. It was a very good meeting. We had very good participation. We had landscapers and people involved in irrigation management, and a number of residents, and Meg and Stella from the Heights, and we really had good participation. And Sean has already begun to work with us on developing a PowerPoint presentation of what we're finding, what we're developing here. So Sean, I apologize, but for the moment, I'm going to move on to the GBCC
so
presentation.
you deferred 6?
6, yes, I deferred 6.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
And if we can come back, if we have the time to come back to it, we will. But I did.
That's fine.
I did suggest to Ben that he would be given a moment to speak. Now, I just want to place this topic. We've been asked, we were tasked by the board with looking at the Gardners Bay Country Club buffering cistern. It's a 162,000 gallon cistern, I believe. Only 116,000 gallon buffer.
Measurements of the tank itself are actually smaller when you include the width of the walls, the support braces in the middle,
Okay,
stuff like that.
So-
the tank's capacity at max 160.
right. There is a much larger topic that always generates a lot of controversy around a full site plan at Gardners Bay Country Club, reworking their irrigation, not just their irrigation systems, but a bit of a redesign there. We've been asked to look specifically at this buffering well and what its impact would be and whether it can be separated from the larger site plan review that GBCC is still working its way through. So Ben, if you would come up, introduce yourself. Are you able to?
Yeah, this is
Share.
gonna be a first for me. I'm gonna try and screen monitor it here for you guys.
So Ben, your position, first of all, tell us who you are and what your position is at GBCC. And Ben, I believe, is filling in for Jay Card, who is taking a sabbatical.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out if I can screen monitor this here.
I just allowed it to be shared.
So yeah, go to share. And Pam, I am very mindful that you're there and have wanted to comment and that you and Sean have been neglected.
All right, yeah, so my name's Ben Howell, superintendent over at Gardners Bay. I started there mid-September, so kind of took over in the middle of this project here. But just trying to educate people on, what the cistern actually is and what its intent use for us is at this moment. This is a picture of a cistern that was built very similar in Jersey. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it. I hadn't until I saw this picture. So kind of shows you what it looks like underground. You kind of see the support beams in the middle there, and that's why the tank, even though it measures bigger, that's why it's only 116,000, not 154.
And then just for reference, 116,000 gallons represents your usage over the course of a day, a week?
It's really weather dependent,
During the season.
so it depends on how much it's raining or what the temperatures are, ET rates. But our biggest put out last year was 49,000 in one night. That, is in the heat of a drought when we haven't had rain for maybe 2-3 weeks at a time.
So a couple of days.
Yeah, so, but 116,000 in the spring could last 2-3 weeks, there's days where we may only use 8,000 gallons, because we're only watering specific areas. It's not, when we turn on the irrigation system, it's not a full blast that everything's getting watered. It's specifically watered, and with our new irrigation system, it's more precise and accurate by being able to do that. So it's really hard to say, hey, we use this amount of water every day, because every day is different. It's all weather dependent, how much sun's out, ET, wind takes into factor. And we have our own weather station that we monitor that, and that's how we make our judgment of how much water we're using. I just want to state, as of now, Gardners Bay Country Club, we do not wish to collect any rainwater as part of this application. We're using this cistern as a buffer out of our current allowance of 6 million gallons a year by filling it with a well that pumps 120 gallons a minute into the cistern. So at this moment, I just wanted to be clear, we're not collecting any rainwater as part of this application. Any confusion about that, that's all been taken off the table. I just want to make that clear to everybody.
So you're filling the cistern from the well?
From the well that we're currently allowed 120 gallons. You can adjust how much you want it to fill into the system. If you only want it to fill at 80 gallons a minute, that's what the technology will be able to allow us to do. The plan is that you can slowly fill it during the day or set it to fill for a half hour, turn off, slowly fill. So that way in the middle of the summer, when we need to water for 9-10 hours at 120 gallons a minute, the well is not constantly running for an extended period of time. So the cistern
And
is
so
gonna allow us to
that is the
buffer.
concept of buffer.
Yes.
Okay.
It allows us to control how much that well is running, which we don't want the well running for 10 hours. That doesn't make sense for anybody.
Is that what you do now?
In the heat of it, if we were watering at 49,000 gallons, it would take us about 10, 11 hours to water a full cycle in a drought period of the
And
season.
you'd be running continuously or,
Well, right now, once the well comes on, the well is constantly keeping pressure into that system. So
Right.
the well is running based off the draw coming into the actual pipe. So
Like
if the pipes-
thermostats?
Exactly. So if the pipes are emptying because the heads are on, the well is going to continue to try and keep that pressure at 120 gallons a minute.
Where's the pressure measured?
It's in the pump house, so everything's controlled inside the pump house. And this is another reason why we want to get a new pump house, is the technology is so out of date, you know?
Is it physically measured? Is it a physical?
It's a number that keeps track of exactly how much we use each day, month. I go in there every single day and we keep track in our own records that we also supply to DEC, monthly recordings of how much water we use each month and every year.
and Andrew, I'm going to allow you to ask, but also we should be respectful that he has a presentation and we'll take questions at the end.
I don't mind answering questions in the middle either.
You have no on-system finished water storage. It's all direct from the pump.
As of now, yes.
There's no tank. There's no hydropneumatic tank. There's no buffering at all.
So the only buffering that is the pipes are full, you know, so the pipes are pressurized, so if you turn the head on the farthest point away from the well, it's not it's not guaranteed that the well's gonna kick on like
Yes,
that.
yes.
It's gonna flow water to the
Yeah.
weakest point,
Yeah.
and then the well is gonna say, oh, we need to get pressure back up.
So you got a well, you got a pump, you have a distribution system and a pressure sensor, but no tank.
No tank.
Okay.
And that's what we are here to talk about.
Right. Understand.
So, well, we're considering phase one of the cistern. Phase two would be collecting rainwater. We have no plan of doing that. We don't have financial funding to do that. That's why we're taking it off. But I just wanted to talk about phase one, which I kind of just talked about. This is the size of the tank. Like I said, the measurements don't make it accurate on how much the tank holds due to the pipe and the structure inside. The tank goes 16 feet below ground. It's not 16 feet deep. It's 13. There's a foot underneath of crushed rock. 2 feet of material will be on top of the cistern itself. It's going to be filled exactly by our current well at 120 gallons a minute. We never have exceeded our 6 million. It's not going to change that. You know, we water the necessary amount. We don't go right to that 6 million. You know, we make sure that we are far under that every year. You know, we don't cut it close like that. If we needed to, we would stop watering certain areas, you know, or water less, keep the greens alive, let the teas go if we ever got into that. We've had some pretty bad droughts over the last 4 years, and we still have never reached that 6 million total.
What did you do in September and October of '24?
So last fall that was right when I started here. So and it didn't rain for the first 2.5 months when I started. It's pretty crazy for me. But with the weather that we had that time of year, we didn't have to water as much. We watered more than we normally would in the fall because we're counting normally on rain events. But we had to water far less, but more than we ever have at that time of year, you know.
But you were still under the 6 million at the end of the
Oh,
year.
yeah. Yeah, we just went over 5 this year.
Okay.
Same thing, like I said before, it has the ability to slowly fill throughout the day. We can change that, you know, it's not like, oh, it goes down, you know, to 100,000, it automatically clicks on. It would be set by a computer or manually done inside the pump house on when we want to fill back up. We think that's a benefit instead of running the well considered amount of time overnight, depending on the weather. We're then gonna be able to pump 600 gallons a minute from the cistern. Right now, we can run about 2 to 3 heads. You know, so you times that by 6, you know, we could run 15, 16 heads using 600 gallons a minute, which cuts our watering window down, you know. So instead of watering for 10 hours, now we can, with the same amount of water, we can water in a shorter amount of time.
How many heads system-wide?
I don't know the exact number, but I believe it's about 450-ish.
450.
Yeah. But some of them never run, you know, we choose what we run when we want to, you know.
All right, and I'm going to let you present, as I'm hearing, you said it was a benefit to buffer. I understand some of the benefit to the club. Are you describing a benefit on the aquifer in terms of?
I think it's a benefit.
Logically or
I think it's a
environmentally.
benefit to everybody. I think it's a benefit to our neighbors. I think it's a benefit to our club. It's a benefit to the well itself, not straining it as much as it is currently.
So less of a chance of failure and breakage.
Exactly. It's not running, it's just like a car, I guess, if you run for 12 hours compared to only running for an hour once a week, you would think longevity of the well theoretically would last longer. I don't know the exact, life expectancy.
You're also saying impact on the community downstream, let's say, there's less of a chance of having an impact on that.
We believe so, yeah. I don't know that have the scientific evidence to prove that, but just by common knowledge to me, it seems like it's a better practice to have it running less.
Okay, so let you continue with your presentation.
So there's other alternatives instead of using a cistern, and a lot of courses do that have properties that are big enough. A lot of golf courses use massive ponds, which they fill by multiple wells into a pond, and then it allows them to pump faster. It's the same concept. So they're not drawing straight off the well. They fill their ponds during the day slowly, and then at night when they want to pump as much, they can pump whatever they want. We don't have a space to construct a pond, and we see a lot of negatives in it. One being the pond has to be lined. Anybody that goes near a pond, it's like walking on, seaweed, basically. It's extremely dangerous. You can slip into it. You get the evaporation loss during the day, leaching loss if the liner fails, breeding mosquitoes, algae growth. Now you got to use pesticides to avoid the algae growth. They need large filtration systems coming out of it because of the stuff that can get into it. And, I wouldn't say it's a higher noise, but there's a higher noise factor because the pumps are right outside next to the pond. They're not in buildings. They can't have a building over top of a pond. Updating our current pump house. Our current pump house is basically like a really old shed that's in the back of somebody's yard. It's not insulated. It's 17 feet from the closest Hay Beach property line. We have basically minimal technology inside for monitoring. Our new pump house would allow basically a camera on the pump at all times. I could be sitting home, check in when the system's running, check in when it's not supposed to be running, and then be able to have the ability to turn it off, God forbid something does happen. It'll show us a flow rate on the screen at all times and what's running. So if I knew by setting it up on our computer, I was running water from say 7 to 10, and I checked in at 11 and saw that there was a flow rate, that means that something got stuck on, something's leaking. You can manually shut it down with the new technology our pump house would be able to have at this point. Not what we have now, but the new one. The pipes in there are over 30 years old, nothing wrong with them, they don't leak, but over time, it's nice to make sure that those big pipes inside the pump house are new and updated and have proper valves that work efficiently. Same thing, it pumps slowly. If with the new pump house, still be pumping the same amount, but we don't have to pump for as long period of times. We updated our irrigation system in the last few years.
This has already been done.
Yeah, this is all done, but so this is the end of us updating our irrigation system. The end is the pump house. So the pipes have been reconfigured into smarter ways of routing. The new sprinkler heads have way more technology. They're way more effective. Each sprinkler head is controlled singly at the computer. So just for example, say I wanted to water the 10th tee. You don't have to turn on all 5 heads that surround the 10th tee. You can individually control each of those heads. That was not possible with our last system. So the new system has become way more effective and accurate in the sense that we know which spots need more water or less rather than a whole area coming on, which is how it used to be controlled. The heads don't stick nearly as much. We don't have leaky valves like we used to. Like I said before, the heads are very precise. We have 81.5 acres of what we call maintained turf, meaning that we mow it consistently. We only irrigate 36 acres of that. So that's the greens, green surrounds and tees. Fairways are not irrigated, rough is not irrigated. We have 154 acres on the property, but what we call our native areas are the tall fescue that we don't cut except for once a year. So that's where the difference.
What's a stuck head?
Like if a head was supposed to come on and run for 3 minutes and it sticks, which used to happen a lot with the older
It
system,
pops up?
it stays up and it just keeps squirting water. So, you know, you only wanted to water it for 3 minutes. Now it doesn't turn off until somebody sees it, you know, and that was a big issue on why we wanted to get this new system is we had no way of monitoring or controlling what was going on unless we were physically there throughout the whole night, which nobody is. So we also didn't have an updated map. The system was basically installed over like a 15-year period. It was kind of hodgepodge together. You know, they had added heads here, they added heads here. We really had no idea where valves were, what pipe was in the ground, and that's why updating it, now we have a GPS map of exactly where every pipe, every valve, it's routed better so it's not putting pressure on certain areas. So basically a loop system, so there's multiple connection points rather than stemming out as a branch where everything's going out one way. The system has less stress on it that way by having it connected multiple
Like veins
ways.
and arteries.
Exactly. We still have never exceeded our 6 million gallon limit. This is our new GPS map. It's available at the town building department. I also sent it to Amber. So it's accessible to anybody that wants it. We've been asked to present a map previous. I just said we never had one. So this was it was a big upgrade for us to know exactly where everything is and what we have out there. But this is available. It's very hard to see on a small screen. So if you get it on the PDF form off of the website, you can kind of zoom in and out and check it out. But I'm not going to do that on here. It'll take a while. So I just want to make sure that, and it's been on file at the building department since we completed the updated system, the updated irrigation. It's been on there since last January. So
So Ben, this would show the 36 acres on this map?
yes.
Okay. That's
I mean, you can clearly see that the gaps of where we don't irrigate, you know, so everything's centralized in what we call the greens and the tees. The old system, we used to water out and now it throws back in. It's just more precise. When it get windy nights, you don't know where that water is going. If you got everything thrown out and in, you know, now we can control it depending on wind patterns and stuff like that. All right, we're not going to throw out tonight. We're going to throw in because the wind's coming out of the north, or the wind's really heavy tonight. We're not going to water till the morning. You know, stuff like that is decisions that we make on a daily basis. Yeah, I just wanted to show that, you know, we do our research and we have consultant Paul Roche. He works all over the country. He's highly recommended in the golf world. He installed this whole system and helped install this process from the cistern and has installed it in multiple places across the country. Cornell, we do yearly water testing down off our 10th hole, which is pretty close to Cockles Harbor. We give them all of our chemicals that we spray, and then they test to see if those chemicals come up or are found in any part of the water through that test that they do once a year.
could you, you said you take from a well, a different well, you
It's
take
a
it.
testing well, so we don't pump from it. But it used to be our old well. In 1986, the DEC said that the well was too close to Cockles Harbor, and that's when they moved it to the other side of the property,
Okay.
near the Hay Beach side, because they say it's higher up, and that's where
So
the
it became the testing well, so it's like a downstream testing well.
Yeah, we don't pump from it at all. It's not connected to
And
any,
it's downstream, it's closer to the harbor.
it's as close to the harbor as you could get from our property.
What season do you do this sampling and the testing?
They come in the fall. It's not like a guaranteed date. And they do all the research themselves and just send us the report.
So it's kind of like end of year, you don't imagine that anything's gonna happen over the next 6 months?
Yeah, they see what we sprayed, we give them everything that we spray, and then they have the ability to test, you know, and see if anything shows up.
Okay.
The goal is, and what happens is, for very low amounts or decreasing amounts of that chemical over the year. And then, you know, they do that around all golf courses, and that's how they come up with banning of certain chemicals. Suffolk County is one of the strictest in the country. I go to seminars all over the country, and it's always, oh yeah, you can use this chemical unless you live in Suffolk County. So, you know, they're very on top of what we're doing, and, you know, this research helps them create new chemicals and figure out which chemicals are no good. And that's what they've been doing for 20 years to get rid of some of these chemicals that used to be sprayed back in the day that we no longer spray now. The DEC, we submit all 4 of our wells on property. We only have one for the irrigation well. The other one is our clubhouse, our maintenance facility, and our bathroom. So when I say 4 wells, we don't have 4 wells for our irrigation system. We have 4 wells on the property. But we send them yearly results of everything that we put out each month to the number. So the first of the month, I take readings on all 4 wells. We have a company, Maximum Environmental Management. They come in once a month and test from sinks in our shop, the sinks in the clubhouse, the sinks in the bathroom, and straight from our hose setup out on the golf course, and give us monthly reports on pH levels, certain chemical readings that they come up with and what they're looking for. So we're on top of that in the sense that we see the readings. What I look at mostly is pH level every month. Then, you know, you try and put out chemicals to get the pH to where we want. Just a little bit of the testing again. So we use moisture meters. That's this picture right here. This is like the best tool for the golf course. I have 5 guys that have them. We go around, we test every area when it comes to tees, greens, approaches, and that's how we designate how much water each area is going to get. So the 10th green gets different amount of water than the 13th green, and we know that by taking these moisture meter readings daily, multiple times a day. Soil tests are done yearly around the golf course in different areas, and that's how we know how much fertilizers we need to put out, and it's not a broadcast application. So we don't just go out and put the same amount of fertilizer out everywhere. It's the same thing as the water. Every green is tested. We try and get to that level of the amount of nitrogen we want to put out throughout the year. I said the wells are tested. We test for static water depth, which I'm going to show you those readings here in a moment. pH levels, like I said, and yearly recordings go to the DEC. I just went back to 2017. I have the records all the way back to 02. I could probably find them from even more than that. But this is our total gallons a year out of the irrigation well. So
These are the numbers you're comparing to 6 million, the under 6 million.
yeah, so you know, this year we just went over 5. You can see in 2017, I wasn't here, but that was our highest. That was the highest number I found going back to 03. So I wanted to include that, but you know, it's not like we sit here and say, oh, we're going to use every 6 million gallons that we get. You know, we're specifically dialed in to use what's necessary, not because we're allowed 6 million doesn't mean we use it.
Okay, so,
I can go back if you need.
No, it's not that I want to go back. I just want to make sure that as in terms of general focus, this buffering concept, and, you know, I do understand, you know, I'm appreciative of all the things that you do, and it's good that you show us that. So please continue. But our focus, I just want to remind everybody, is on, is it a good idea for the, I guess the building department has to approve the application for the.
Yeah, after it gets through site plan review.
So we have to say, do we think that the buffering cistern is a good idea or not? And this is background in general.
Yeah, I just think that this information is good for everybody to see. I don't think a lot of people understand everything. It might be not technically in this topic.
But let me just ask the question, is the buffering cistern completely something we can think about? Some people may not want to think about it separately from your overall site plan. But let's say the overall site plan, for some reason, the DC won't give you the extra whatever you want, or the community is upset about it, and whatever comes up that comes your way. Separately, is this, it seems to me this is a missing piece that's already needed.
Our plan, yes, is that this cistern, we think it's beneficial for everybody, and we think it should be done now to help everybody, and we'll continue.
Regardless of
over
the site plan, how it evolves.
I'll come to every meeting for the next year and a half and continue to talk to you guys about, why we think that collection is there, but we don't want to think about that right now. We just want to get this part of it, the pump house and the cistern.
Meg is, yeah, Meg,
Site plan review is strictly for the cistern and the pump house, nothing else.
right.
That's what the site plan.
And so we're talking, so the important thing is that for you, it's a benefit regardless of anything else.
That's
And and you believe for the community, it might be a
I totally
benefit
do,
regardless of anything else.
Question.
Andrew?
Do you anticipate that the cistern will meaningfully change that pattern of usage?
I don't think it will. I just think it's more beneficial for the daily usage. Every year is gonna be different, the years where it doesn't decide to rain for 3 months, we use more water.
And the purpose of the cistern isn't to shift seasonal usage seasonally or anything like that. It's really a daily management tool.
It's a daily management.
Daily buffering.
It's a buffer.
Right.
Okay.
And different times of the year, it's gonna be way more beneficial. Like I said, in the spring, if the cistern was full, we could go weeks without having to turn on the well, which to me is a benefit. You turn it on once and you could go 3 weeks without having to turn it on,
Yep.
facing rain events.
So maybe we're shifting, but only not in like from winter to summer.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's mostly a
It's short-term,
daily,
it's a
short-term
buffer.
management tool.
It's a big tank.
Right.
This slide I think is really interesting. So in 1996, when the well was moved and installed there, they tested static water depth. I know we don't have any recordings from 96 to 2022. It's not because of me. 22, we bought the tool. I think it was after we started this whole process. I don't know if the recommendation came from you guys or the DEC, but we bought the tool that actually measures static water depth. So
That's from surface,
from the top of the ground down to
so a
the
bigger number means the water's lower in the wellbore.
Exactly. But you can see in these numbers, and, it's a perfect example, in this year, we didn't have rain, right, for 3 months. It doesn't change drastically.
10th of, 0.1 off of 96 reading.
And all three of these, I don't know why, but all three of these are right along the Hay Beach property, so they're on our northwest side, all three of these monitoring wells. We don't pump water from them, they're just a little cap in the ground. I go out, I unscrew the 3 bolts, I drop the tool down.
Yep.
As soon as it hits water, it starts beeping, that means that's where the water is.
Is that the highest elevation topographically? That
It's
border?
close. It's close, I don't think it's the highest, I think where the clubhouse is a little.
Oh, right.
But it's close. It's kind of hard to judge that because you are kind of down when you're farther away. It's definitely not the highest, but it's not the lowest, that's for sure.
It's just, wow.
Yeah, and I'm gonna continue to take more readings. My goal is to take 3 or 4 a year, but like I said, I just started in September. We didn't have the tool until 2022, so definitely something we'll continue to keep doing. I just wanted to clarify the fertigation. It's kind of the name doesn't do it just. Fertigation system is basically to adjust water pH, just like in your homes that you have filtration systems in there. You're trying to get to that pH to be at the desired level that you want it, which for us is 6 to 8.5 is what we consider groundwater optimum pH. 7 is neutral.
So when you use the term fertigation, you are not referring to reuse of wastewater whatsoever.
No, that's not part of the fertigation. But a lot of people read fertigation and think fertilizer. I didn't come up with the name. This is what they call it across the world. But a lot of people get sucked in, they see fertigation and they think, oh yeah, they're putting fertilizers into the system to put out. That to us is exactly what we don't want to do. We do not make broad applications. That would be like saying, okay, we're gonna turn every sprinkler on tonight for 4 minutes. It's exactly what we don't do. We don't go out and just put the same amount of fertilizer everywhere. That's why we do our soil testings. And we can figure out which areas possibly need more fert, and that soils play a factor into that, sun plays a factor into that, different types of grass species that are into that play factors into it. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and putting fertilizer into the fertigation system would be the last thing I would ever do, because that means everything's getting that.
Is this, you're a little acidic up there?
We're slightly lower, we're 6.01 normally, so yeah, we're just right where we want to be, but it's
Use calcite?
What's that?
Calcite is what?
Yeah, lime, calcium, there's certain different kinds of soluble powders that you can use to slowly adjust. We're pretty close to where we want to be. We'd just like to be a little higher because our last test in the fall was at 6.01. Suitable, but we'd like to get it closer to 7.
So the only adjustment that you're laying down is adjusting the pH level and the wetting agent.
Yeah, so
There's
wetting
no-
agents.
There's no other, that list of chemicals that you mentioned, you're gonna show for testing, there's none of those are going through the system.
No, not the irrigation system, no.
How do you treat fungus on greens?
Fungus is a sprayed application with pesticides, fungicides. Those are done preventatively, on intervals. We don't wait to get fungus, then it's too late. But that's all done through the DEC. Rates and labels are all created by them, and we follow them. And you can't spray certain chemicals too close together. Every chemical, different classes. There's a lot of research that goes into that. So we follow, recommendations by companies that make these chemicals and decide if we're allowed to use them here or not. Wetting agent that helps water be able to adhere into the soil or the plant. So it's not a chemical that going to leak in and affect anything. It's basically like, it's very soapy. If you touched it, your hands would be like you dipped your hand in soap.
It's a surfactant.
Exactly. So it helps the plant hold the water. So that's a benefit to us as well. Some places use wetting agents inside their fertigation. So that they adjust the pH and then they put a little bit of wetting agent in all applications. Meaning that when they put out the water, it's trying to hold it into the plant, not just sink through it. It's a little history of pH. I'm not sure how much people know about it. It ranges 0 to 14. 7 indicates acidity. Over that, it indicates alkaline. 7 is considered neutral. Groundwater, 6 to 8.5. It's a safe range. As of 10:30, our last wells before the irrigation well was shut down for the year, our testing was 6.01. Just kind of to circle back, this is the end of it, just wanted to, at this point in time, our application does not include collecting any rainwater. Cistern is a buffer, it's gonna be underneath the pump house, maximize the efficiency of our updated irrigation system. We think it's a benefit for everybody.
So, yeah, people have questions, so
I was gonna ask on the cistern versus captured water, looking at the numbers that you are using now, why was that a good idea? Why was that considered? I understand that it's not in the package now, so maybe it's a bad question.
Well, as long as we continue that this is not part of this application, but I have no problem answering the question. So we have multiple areas on the golf course where water goes into the low spots. It flows through the whole property. And I'm talking about heavy rain events, not when it rains for an hour. Like I'm talking about 2 to 3 inch rainstorms, which does happen. Maybe not as much as we used to see, but 4 or 5 times a year, maybe we get rivers going down these 2 spots. I actually have videos, more than happy to share them with anybody, but the water is clearly not going into the aquifer. You could put a boat in it, it would float and go right out into Cockles Harbor. So that water is if we could somehow hold that, we would think of that as a benefit to the whole community and ourselves by being able to use from those big storms, collecting or stopping that water from just literally rushing straight into the ocean.
The impounding, there'll be some impounding that you'll keep it from flowing out, but there's no intent to use it. And, thank you.
Yeah, eventually we would try and hold it. However that may be, there's a lot more that's gonna go into this process. So we have no plans at Gardeners Bay to do this without being on the same goal with everybody, between you guys, town board, and all residents. If we can come up with a solution that we think is benefit, if we could somehow capture, let's say 500,000 gallons a year, we go back to, instead of using 5 million gallons from the well, we're only using 4.5, If just giving an
You
example.
may or may not get credit for having done so, but if you capture 500,000 gallons effectively,
Yeah.
you've used less.
Yeah, not capturing from the aquifer, we're talking about just surface drainage, water that's not staying anywhere on the silence.
So we should use the term, the complex term, surface runoff, okay. Capturing the surface runoff, okay.
Other questions? Yeah.
I do actually, oh, somebody else have a question?
Did you have a question?
One question. The panels, the concrete panels, they fit together with a tongue and groove sort of a setup?
Tongue and groove, and there's a solvent, basically glue that they
They put
paint
it-
on the inside, and then yes, tongue and groove locking system.
Is there, this may be a question, well, if, I think the system was designed like in Arizona or something like that. The company that does this is from Arizona?
It's very familiar out west, when
Right.
they use recycled water, same thing. They're trying to store anything they can, they have way different water systems.
Do we know, because as you know, I know that you know, everybody on Shelter Island is really nervous about the water supply and all that. Do we know if that compound could wind up somehow flowing down into the aquifer? I mean, I guess it seals up pretty quickly, but then you're flushing it with water.
I think it's more of a concrete solvent, I guess. I don't really have the exact answer for you there, but I look at it as something that hardens up very hard to be able to hold that concrete.
But, you know, an MSDS sheet on that, you know, might be something that you could maybe provide.
Yeah, I
I
could
think
definitely talk to our
that would be helpful.
engineer and the company that's gonna put it together. We do tanks and see if they have any data. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's, again, you know, the people in Arizona don't have the same sensitivity to, you know, 8 feet down is where my drinking water comes from.
If I had to guess, I would say no.
Yeah.
That's.
Okay, well,
Willing to,
something more than a guess would be
I
great.
could definitely try and do some research. I don't know if they know that, but I can definitely call our engineers and the company that installs these everywhere and see if they have any research on that for you guys.
That would be much appreciated.
I could get even exactly what it's called. I don't know what it's called. I've never seen this done
Yeah,
before.
it's-
I've never heard of a cistern, you know.
It's the goop that goes between the
Yeah.
beams, that's fine. And,
I did ask them because I thought we were gonna be doing it in the winter, if it had like a temperature, like if it was too cold, could you not do it? And they said no. That was the only thing I really asked about.
okay.
We're past that now, about cold.
all right,
Peter,
great, yes.
can I have a statement prepared, if I can just read it,
Uh,
it would take less than 4 minutes.
About the cistern?
Yeah, pretty much about the project, about Garden Space,
Okay.
you know, thinking on
Is
that.
everybody's okay with the? Yeah, good. Say who, who,
So I will, and I am stuck.
Yeah, I'm done. Guess I can take this one.
So the thought was I would.
Thank you, guys.
thank you, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Thought was I would read it tonight, but. As medical prep tonight, so who knows if I'll be back. My name is Ken Kraus. I reside on Country Club Drive, right here in the Shelter Island. We've been there since 1987, where we built. Gina's my wife. We raised our family there. We were one of the first purchasers of Hay Beach property when it became available and subdivided in the 70s. It was an area my wife and I identified as the most desirable location and spot for our family's future. Concurrently, as a matter of choice and lifestyle and sport therapy, I've enjoyed being a member at Gardens Bay Country Club. When I am not there, I still find enjoyment in knowing it's there, that it's vibrant, that it's enjoyed by many, that when I drive through, I see juniors, families, men, women of all ages enjoying their games, the golf course and its beauty. Gardens Bay is truly a shelter institution and has been an important part of our history and lore of Shelter Island's tourist and second home fabric. Since 1986 and largely for 130 years, 1896, sorry. since 1896, the largest over 130 years have been counted on in Gardeners Bay to provide memories for its golfing membership, outing participants, and guests. As a member of the board there, we, management, others that serve in volunteer capacities are resolute in preserving its character, its beauty, its relevance, its continuance, and appeal as an ongoing concern and attraction to new members. To achieve these goals, we occasionally have to upgrade and replace key infrastructure components. And in tonight's ask, specifically the pump house, which we would be further away from the Hay Beach homeowner perimeter than the current one. The pump and structure would be 50 years newer, resulting in quieter, more efficient operation. I think the rest of what I was going to say, Ben probably covered. And do I have anything else? I do. We at the club and I, as I come up to speed, recognize some of the mistakes in approach, timing, clarity, and communication that have become apparent and made. I'm not so sure they rise to a level where denial would be appropriate, but we as a board, a membership, and on behalf of the professionals and seasonals we employ, we respectfully ask for the approval from the town board level to enable Gardens Bay to continue in accordance with member directives to meet and maintain the high standards our predecessors set through the decades. That's just something I'd like to share.
And thank you. Thank you very much.
And I may or may not be back. I think we have
If you
a
want,
couple of town board members
yeah,
and someone.
on Zoom. Everyone will be here tonight, but 2 will be on Zoom. If you want to give that to the town clerk as part of the record, you can. She'll read
Is that
it.
something that's useful?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. And good luck with the prep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so at this
I'm
point,
always available too, sorry, I mean, I'm always available if you want to check out my email, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to email or call me, I'm glad to help you clarify certain things. We're not trying to hide anything, and we're trying to be here for the community.
yeah, thank you. And I mean, I think this is very valuable because this is the open hearing that, you can see that we get people who are interested who join us, and we have board members here with us, so and obviously it educates us as well. All this, yeah,
Can I
Joe?
ask a question? Now, what is the involvement with the state and your permit, your irrigation permit, your withdrawal permit with the DEC for this scale of project?
So that was before I was here, it was a couple of years ago, we had asked for 6 million gallons more to make it a 12 million gallons. It was denied, and then they had asked us to come up with ways where we thought we could benefit from not having to get more gallons, and that's why we kind of came up with this possibility of stormwater collection. So we're not withdrawing our permit at this moment, but they wanted us to fix our irrigation system and get it up to date and then reevaluate that. So the past 2 years, we have been upgrading our irrigation system, and this pump house cistern is kind of the last step of what we consider updating our irrigation system. So we're not withdrawing our permit, but we know that it's gonna take some work and some time, and we're okay with that.
The application, you mean,
We're not withdrawing that application
for 12 million? I see.
But
And
we know
But
that
it's
there's
separate
not-
from the request tonight and
100%.
we're discussing today.
what is the role of the DEC in your current permit with respect to this project? Is there a pending or required approval to install storage for your withdrawal permit, your existing withdrawal permit?
They were in contact about us putting this in, and they didn't have any comments back to us, because as long as we don't go over the 6 million, they don't consider it to be an issue that they need to be involved with, because we're still holding in at that 6 million. So they look at it as a benefit of upgrading our irrigation system.
Did they, have they submitted any documentation to you that says such?
No, I
No,
do not
okay.
have any information like that. No.
So you communicated and contacted them to understand what, if any, updates or documents they needed as part of the project, and their response was they're not involved in this cistern phase of the project.
Yes,
Is that
as far
correct?
as I am. Since I've been here, I haven't been aware of any contact with the DEC, besides that they denied the extra 6 million and as long as we upgrade our irrigation system, they would consider reevaluating the addition of 6 million down the road, but they wanted us to upgrade the system first.
So they're not going to modify or issue you a separate permit for the cistern?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So Pam Demarest has been very patiently waiting with her hand up. I'm not sure which topic her hand went up a long time ago, so.
Before,
Pam, if you,
are we asked to act on this, or are we just receiving information?
I think we were asked to evaluate what was being proposed. So I'm not closing the topic.
Okay, fine.
I won't close the topic until 4. I did want to just make sure I'm aware that hand has been up this whole time. So Pam, we may have a little bit more to discuss here on this particular topic, but if you're there and wish to speak, I wouldn't.
There she goes.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Peter. I just want to dispel some notions about the Clean Water Act and the New York State Constitution and public water and that, you know, it only has to do with public water. There's no regulation on private wells in connection with the Clean Water Act. It just doesn't exist. They are only responsible on public water systems. So I'd like to dispel that notion immediately.
Well, I know that we're only responsible, that the town has a responsibility where there's public water providers, and the individual has a responsibility where they have for their own private wells. There was a constitutional amendment passed by referendum that said all New York residents have a constitutional right to clean water and clean air. That's a very general aspirational statement, so how it plays out, I don't know. But
That's only in connection with public water systems. So
I'm not sure
you
that's
can confirm that, at another date. I really don't want to take up too much of your
Okay.
time, honestly. I just
Okay.
want you to confirm that. And the other situation is that the Suffolk County testing program here for the $100 for the testing was put in place, as Joe said, so that you know, as sort of a bargaining chip to get more residents to get that done. But
because we felt it was important.
but the information that they are collecting from that program is not what shall I say? It's not anonymous. You can FOIL for that information from every person who has gotten their private wells tested. So there's not necessarily a reason for the town to install a
Right. I agree.
rebate program for that. But I just want you to be aware of that too, that is now public information.
I think that that's an important point you're making, Pam. My understanding is that we can FOIL that information on a street level basis. So not exactly the homeowner level granularity of data. We've had discussions about whether we need that level of granularity. There's some differences of opinion. I actually think that I personally would like to know very local information about my neighbor, but that's personal. One can also say, we certainly can see all of the 300 or 400 tests that were done in the last 10 years. We can get that at a street level already without any further ado. And, you know, that's how the high nitrogen triangle in the center was developed, was by asking for the street level data.
2 years ago.
Yeah, many years ago already. But yes, that's an important point, is that
Right,
we do
yeah,
have
but it still
access.
continues today. Anyone who gets their testing done by Suffolk County, then anyone can FOIL
At
for that.
street level,
information.
we
If
can
you
get
know that your
information.
neighbor got the testing done, you can FOIL Suffolk County and get that information.
I can't get my neighbors, I can get anything on the street. It's just, they anonymize it a little bit. So our streets are short here, so often that's good, but anyway.
Okay, and additionally, I just want to reiterate that the town board, in fact, denied the transfer of the $20,000 from the saltwater intrusion USGS study to private water testing on the island. So I don't know that that's anything that's worth revisiting, and I
Meg is
really
shaking
support
her head
Joe
no.
in wanting to have that program continued, and I think it's really one of the more important issues for many of the homeowners in the nearshore overlay district to have that available and that information available for decades to come. So I just would like to support Joe on his
You're
comments on that.
supporting the saltwater intrusion study from the USGS.
Correct, the $20,000 that's in the budget to
Yeah,
have that done.
Well, and you hear that there's some
I'm not clear
agreement.
which one, I'm not clear which.
She's saying that the original proposal for test wells that could allow more precise measurement of saltwater intrusion that the USGS had provided for us in 2018, that originally was what the $20,000 had been for.
So
And I don't believe it's quite correct that it was voted no, that it should not be transferred to Suffolk County Health Department tests. We had recommended that it be transferred. I believe it was transferred. But I think that at this stage of the game, the board may or may not want that to continue. Anyway, that's for the board to decide.
I can clarify.
I was just gonna say, I can clarify that.
Yeah.
You know, the 2024 budget had $20,000 in the saltwater intrusion line that had been carried over from 2023. So that item had been moved year to year. Then it also had $5,000 for water testing and $5,000 for citizen science work. In the 2025 budget, the $10,000, which is the $5,000 for water testing and the $5,000 for citizen science, was eliminated from the budget. And that $20,000 for saltwater intrusion was moved to the water testing line because then it could be used for saltwater intrusion or individual wells.
Suffolk County Health
So
Department testing.
that's just the way the budget has
Evolve.
evolved.
Thank you. That helps. That helps.
Yeah.
Keep this clear. Okay. Other questions, comments? I think there are a number of items you should expect to see carried over to our next meeting. You know, our unofficial ending these days is 4 o'clock, but we're supposed to end at 3:30. So unless there's any reason or somebody wants to revisit some of the things we haven't taken up that we skipped over.
You know, maybe, Ben, and I don't know, the presentation you made, I don't know if we want to have that on the website or not. Is that something?
Yeah, can you provide that presentation to us to post on the website? Okay. Andrew had raised, is there an evaluation? I mean, I don't think that in the next 5 or 10 minutes, we should come up with an evaluation here. And I think that so I think that this was I think in terms of what we're capable of doing and also the value that we offer the town, this was an opportunity for all of us to evaluate what Gardner's Bay Country Club is at this time proposing. If that feels acceptable. Yeah, Meg.
I just can clarify, because the town board is in charge of the site plan review, we reach out to all the different committees to get their input on this so that we can use that input to make our final decision. So what we would need from you is a memo or some kind of bullet point stating, you know, these are the aspects of the project that we support and we like, these are the aspects that we have questions about, these are things that we don't support, just some kind of outline on where you stand and what you think we need to consider in our review.
Okay, so that is not something I think that is first of all, I don't think that this is appropriate, with Ben.
This time.
Yeah, right at this moment. But it is something that we might want to
Do offline.
do together. So I would hope that we can have a discussion toward developing a consensus around what our, go ahead.
So what's the rationale for that discussion being in a closed session? Don't we have an Open Public Meeting Act requirement so that if he wants to listen to what we say, he can?
I would say, is there any discussion now? And then we can draft something between.
I'll start.
Okay.
First of all, I view your organization as an important landowner and business and resource to the island. 1. 2, this project, as you've described it, is primarily a day-to-day water management tool and will not meaningfully impact your annual usage. So on that basis, for those 2 reasons, I'm leaning towards yes on this, but I'd like to know what how other people feel.
I agree with you. It's an operational thing. I think has tremendous benefits, I think, for the club and probably for the community in the long run with regards to the monitoring and the control that they have that they don't have today. So I can see nothing negative about it, except if the gunk puts on the thing there, but you're not going to be drinking that water. So, that's the only thing that you came up with that could be an objection,
The
is the
concrete
glue that uses.
Yeah, because
It could kill the
we're not
grass.
going to be drinking, but we are going to be drinking it later
Yeah,
after
that
it
will
gets
kill the
sprayed
grass.
out, depending on what's in it.
Yeah,
So-
but you're saying that there's a little bit more due diligence you'd like to see happening, but do you agree, actually, I'll also say, I've long felt that in an environment where we're seeing more drought and more flooding, buffering is a critical tool for all of our systems, for water in general. It's not always easy to achieve. We don't have a lot of places where we can and do currently buffer our water supply. It's hard to do that on an individual homeowner basis. But nevertheless, if we're going to be seeing increases with, more erratic weather, more times when it's an odd that there was no rainfall during this period of time, we usually get rainfall in this time, and oh, here comes the rain and it's going to wash us away, because that happened. Torrential rain seemed to come when they didn't come before. For all of those reasons, I feel that buffering, water capture, these are important concepts and tools to be used. And this is, a small example of it, but a good thing in general. That's my reaction to just not having anything to do with the site plan, just this particular buffering proposal.
Okay.
Greg, or Doug, or Joe, or anybody, do you have?
I yield to.
As presented, I think this is a value add to the way that they manage their water, so I'm inclined to support it.
Anybody else? Doug, Greg, Joe?
I would like to know what the adhesive is. I think that it's out there, and again, for a company that works in Arizona, we're standing on different land than they are, and the town should figure that out, I think.
Is that an exception to a generally positive reaction, or is that a reservation?
No, I think I would list things, the idea of, we support this. I don't know what these letters usually look like that you guys receive from committees. I think that this one thing, at least that I know, is a concern that I'd like to understand that. Do I want to say, I could be a yes if I had that information and felt comfortable with it. I
Well, let's if you had the information that there was non-toxic and non-erode,
I guess in my mind, I would prefer that if, I don't know that a month, I don't know what the schedule is, this project in terms of the town board. Is a month a problem before you got that assumed letter of
Well, we have a continuation of the hearing tonight. So I don't know if the hearing will close tonight or if it will continue on. I'm not sure.
so that's why it's useful to have this as a public discussion of what we think are positives or negatives or reservations.
We really need your recommendation by the time the hearing closes, and then we go into deliberated in a work session. So,
What does this make, format of the recommendation? Does it need to be a letter, or can it just simply be a vote to recommend or not recommend? Because it's atypical that a committee would contribute to this.
So when we get them from the CAC, they're literally, 3 bullets saying, we like this, we have questions about that, we don't recommend this, we vote to approve it, 4-0 or whatever.
Yeah.
planning board, when they do theirs, they do a long analysis of the application
Right.
because it's a different type of board. So because you're a committee, you can do a shorter bullet point saying, in general, we approve this or we would recommend this application, but we have questions about the adhesive used to hold it together. We have questions about, you know, whatever questions or things you think we should get clarity on.
So in
It
the
doesn't
interest
have
of
to be
time,
long.
let's make a motion, make a motion
Okay.
that we endorse this project, subject to a conclusion, a review and conclusion by the town engineer, that the adhesive used to put the panels together does not pose an environmental or risk to the aquifer.
I would add to that we see benefits to buffering water supply.
Fine,
Yeah, we could start with that.
okay?
I would just segregate my role in this committee's letter because the town engineer also provides a review and feedback to the town board. So I submit a separate letter for site plans.
This is separate.
So this is separate, yeah. So I mean, certainly you could condition, you know, any of these concerns, but my review happens independent. And the recommendations are most important following the scope of your review. So for instance, the engineering office gets assigned certain components which the town code dictates must be included in a site plan review, you know, environmental conditions, drainage. There's a list of things that we can work within, confines to the site plan review. So the engineer gets designated certain categories for review. Planning board may have the same or different categories for review. Our committee should identify what that scope of review is. It seems like we've been very clear. Peter's been very clear. The scope of our review is simply the storage and buffering concept of the water, and we can raise questions like, you know, anything in the tank, the adhesive, that's a reasonable concern to add, but our scope would be narrowed to that cistern component, just like mine would be narrowed to, you know, I don't talk about electrical system or something, you know, anything related. So we should clarify that in this discussion.
So Andrew's interest is in doing this in open meeting rather than an exchange of emails. So he's making a motion.
Right, is there a second?
I would second your motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
I've just got my 5 points here that I want to put into this thing. You know, I don't work really fast.
5 points? That sounds pretty
Yeah,
fast.
Okay, so what do we got here? It's our understanding that the site plan approval is for the cistern and for the pump house, and that there aren't any other topics that the committee is making a statement to. That number two is that we believe that we need to understand, the town board should make a clear understanding of how these panels are glued together, and is that material safe for use as we're defining it, because it will be in our drinking
Greg,
water.
let me interject, because an important part of this process is that some of the design components aren't necessarily resolved, because this is just the site plan review. So our insertion at that point could simply be that this material is non-toxic, you know, doesn't leach. We can lay out those concerns, but the applicant doesn't necessarily have to identify that specific component of their design, because it's simply the site plan review. So that's another tool that we have as a committee in crafting this response. And if the design component isn't identified, you know, the specific nuts and bolts, you know, you can add your comments to say, when that is determined, it should meet these constraints, that being, you know, non-toxic, non-leaching. I don't know if you have specific chemical requirements.
Do you want to say it and I'll sign it? Say what you want to say, and I'll swear that I said it.
I think that's what Andrew was, you know, asserting before, but we shouldn't get hung up in saying, you know,
That's why I delegated it to you.
Component, you know.
That's why I said, subject to your review, that's not a problem. And I'm not competent to evaluate whether it's a problem, but you are. So I think we endorse this, subject to that review. And when I say this, it's just the cistern and the pump house. That was
my point number one.
That's correct.
Number one, we
That's the
got.
scope.
Point number 2 is that subject to the further engineering evaluation that
He had 5.
is.
All right, that's number 2.
Right.
Uh,
You
num-
have 3 more, I know.
Number 3, and this is, it's our understanding that fertigation is for pH control and application of wetting agent, that there are no other materials being distributed by the system.
Jessica, I see you writing. Are you writing what he's, yeah, okay.
And this includes septic effluent as
Including
it's
septic.
not happening.
Right.
Where's number 4? The, and this is pretty personal, I guess, in terms of, it continues to be a surprise to me anyway, that given the history of water usage and the installation of a much more, a much better irrigation system, that the Gardner's Bay Country Club is still proceeding with an additional 6 million gallons. Don't understand that.
Right, however.
That's
Isn't
not,
that sort of editorial? I mean, we're-
Anyway, it's out of.
That's like, oh yeah, and by the way, this committee doesn't want to ever approve the additional 6 million gallons by putting it in this memo. I think this memo is really just about
right,
the cistern system,
Bingo.
correct.
not about the fact that, you know, in their minds, they still want to apply for the incremental 6 million gallons.
It's correct. It's out of the,
Nothing
it's not
else.
the question. The question is the cistern and the pump house, period.
With no implied approval for the site plan. Of the overall site plan. I mean, that's our attempt is to do that. I understand that you're surprised that they're still interested in that.
Yes, and does this
As you
site
said,
plan, does the operation of this site plan make it easier to use more water? Or how's that? Is that-
So you're saying.
the function of the-
it's a Trojan horse to use more water.
Okay, but I asked him, I said, do you anticipate that your annual pumpage is going to change as a result of this cistern? And Ben's answer was clearly no.
But I still want an additional 6 million gallons that I have no use for.
That is not
In here.
subject to this. That's another,
Again, I feel that the cistern may allow for much greater amount of water to be captured. And then I'm not saying captured in you know.
that's why I asked the question, he said no, and he was quick.
He said no about what?
It was a
said
clear
no.
no. There was a clear
I
no. This
asked him
doesn't let us, we're not.
Whether the cistern was going to change the pattern of production out of that system.
And we said, we should advise the town board to understand, given how much water they have used in the last 25, 30 years, why they would possibly need additional water.
Okay, so that's,
They're not asking us for additional.
that's-
water.
Oh, no, the town board, we can ask the town board that you ought to find out about that.
that is a statement that we can make when we're asked to opine on that question, not this one.
I disagree.
Okay, vote no then.
And then vote, yeah, vote.
Well, okay, so Gordon also has his hand up, but you had 5 points.
Yeah, you know, I doubled up on the adhesive.
You're okay with the amount of
Places, sorry.
Fair enough.
Gordon?
Greg, originally, you know, in the Hay Beach agreement with the DEC for the well, that new well that's on the property, there was also a covenant there that talked about the adjacent homeowners. That's not included, I guess what I'm saying, there are other things here that the DEC controls that are not part of what you're talking about. But we should remember what was there on that property. When they put that well in, and I think I still have the document that where it was, the DEC provided that, but if there should be problems in the homeowners adjacent to the golf course, they had the responsibility to those homeowners.
Do you believe that this
I'm just
requested
saying, it has nothing to
cistern?
do with really what you're voting on, but you're saying it's one of those things
Right,
that
right,
you're bringing
right.
up, okay?
But that's the whole point, is that we're trying to confine what we're saying to say we are not speaking to the larger.
Well, Peter, we could also say we express no opinion on this project and kick it to the town board. Well, let the town board adjudicate.
Do we want to express no opinion on the cistern, or do we want to express an opinion?
I think we should express the opinion and an opinion. We have a motion before us and have a vote, and those who can support it, support it.
Okay, so now Greg has raised his 3 3/4 points. 4 points.
Well, why don't you just drop, my concern is a dissenting opinion.
So look, Robert's
Can be
Robert's Rules of Order is
Sorry.
put on a substitute motion. So the first thing we do is vote the substitute motion, his, up or down. If it goes down, then my original motion, we vote that. That's the way you do
So
it.
his motion being.
His motion, he has
Ask about the 6
four
million.
additional points, including asking about the 6 million gallons.
All the other things.
That's his motion.
Okay, so should we be opining in our advisory about the additional 6 million gallons? And
You're calling on,
I'm
you're calling a vote.
asking for a vote. Should we do so? All in favor?
Which,
Your proposal,
It's
you're
okay.
saying.
There you go.
It's okay for you
I'm
to say
saying we
yes.
should send that to the town.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Okay,
Okay, so now we're back to my original motion.
okay.
So
So,
want to call that vote?
yes, I do want to call that vote. Do we need Jessica to read back, or?
No. I
Okay.
don't think so.
We think we understand the vote.
Original amendment.
All in favor of Andrew's original proposal that we support the.
Restate the.
Okay, the proposal was we endorse the cistern and pump house project because we believe it has a positive effect on the management of the resource by providing a buffer, a tool for buffer, subject to the determination later in the process, either site plan, building department approval or whatever, that the adhesive used to glue the panels together does not pose an environmental risk. That's the motion.
Okay, all in favor, I'll second the motion.
Did you
All in-
mention fertigation? My observation that these are the things that we understand.
My understanding of the fertigation question is that that was just
Well, it's very clear that the
information provided,
fertigation had
but had
nothing to do with wastewater.
That would be included in the scope, I believe, of our review as one of the assumptions, that this system is for this, this, and that. It is not for this, this, and
Fertigation
that.
is not.
We can always call Ben to the podium to reconfirm that.
I think that could be included in the recommendation
Right.
as an assumption to what we are.
Our assumption is that there's no wastewater reuse involved in this.
fine.
Yes.
When fertigation does not refer to that. Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Opposed?
Just because.
Okay. All right, guys, all in favor of adjournment?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Everybody, thank you very much. Everybody, thank you for hanging in there.
Thank you, guys.